He walked into the same restaurant where I was waiting for him, but he wasn't alone. It was my birthday, and he brought his lover. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. And don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing this with someone who needs to hear it. I had reached early, just like every year. It was our little tradition. Same restaurant, same table near the window. I wore the black dress he once said made me look like his whole world. I was excited, nervous. I thought he had something special planned this year. I ordered the wine we always shared and waited. My phone buzzed. It was him. Can't make it tonight. Something came up. That was all he wrote. My smile faded, but I tried to stay calm. I read the message again, hoping I missed something, maybe a sorry or a promise to make it up to me. But there was nothing. I stared at the candles on the table, thinking of leaving. But something told me to stay. Just a little longer. That's when I saw him. He walked in through the front door, holding someone's hand. A woman. She was tall, wore red, and looked like she knew she belonged beside him. He was smiling, laughing. The way he used to smile at me. They didn't look around. He led her through the room, past couples, past waiters, and straight to our booth. The same booth we always booked for my birthday. I couldn't move. I sank lower in my seat, turning just enough to hide my face. My heart was loud in my ears, but everything else felt silent. He poured her wine. They clinked glasses. She laughed. He reached across the table and touched her hand, the way he once touched mine. Same table, same wine, same background music. The only thing that changed was the person sitting with him. I didn't cry. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, watching quietly. Then I looked away. I called the waiter over and asked for the bill. My food was untouched. The wine had no taste anymore. He handed me the check. I paid and stood up, steady and calm. I walked out slowly, without looking back, past their table, past his laughter. He didn't notice me. She never saw me. But I saw everything. I left the restaurant alone. No drama. No goodbye. Just silence. The kind that stays with you. And that was the last birthday I ever spent waiting. He had the nerve to laugh where he once loved me. I still remember the way he used to smile at me across that same table. Every birthday, without fail, he'd reach for my hand as the candles flickered. He'd order the wine before I could ask. The one I liked more because it reminded me of how he remembered the little thing. The playlist never changed, soft, slow songs we once danced to in our living room. We didn't need much. Just us, the food, the conversation, the comfort of knowing we had each other. This year, all of that belonged to someone else. I watched him from across the room. Not directly, just through the corner of my eye. He looked happy, carefree, the way he once looked at me when everything still felt new. But this time, none of it was for me. It was her hand he held, her laugh he waited for, her eyes he watched like they were everything. Same booth, same wine, same playlist, same man, but a different story now. One I was no longer in. He laughed like nothing had changed, like I hadn't once meant the world to him, like our memories had been wiped clean and replaced with this moment. He leaned in close when he spoke. She smiled like she was sure she was winning. And maybe she was. I sat still, quiet. I didn't interrupt. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even let a tear fall. I just sat and let the truth sink in, the kind that doesn't need words. Later that night, he came home. He walked in like it was just another evening. No guilt, no rush to explain. He hung his coat, kicked off his shoes, and glanced at me like I was a stranger sitting in his house. "Hey," he said casually. That was it. I nodded, pretending I hadn't seen him hours earlier, pretending I hadn't watched him laugh with someone else in the place he once made mine. He talked about traffic, work, something he read online. Not once did he mention the message he sent, the dinner he skipped, or the woman he took in my place. I stared at him, not with anger, just curiosity. I watched how easily he lied without lying, how calm he seemed, how practiced it all felt. I wondered if he'd rehearsed this before, or if it just came naturally now. He sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, legs stretched out, unaware or uncaring of what I knew. There was no trace of guilt, no weight in his voice, no pause in his rhythm. He moved through the night like nothing had happened. I said nothing. When he went to bed, I stayed behind. The room was quiet, but my thoughts weren't. I sat in the dark, staring at the floor, every detail from that night playing in my mind like a film I couldn't pause. The way he touched her hand, the curve of his smile, the sound of his laugh that once belonged to me. But I didn't plan to scream. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to make him hurt the way I hurt. I just wanted to be free. So I lay in bed beside him, awake in the silence, not thinking about how to break him, but how to finally let him go. I was in the booth behind them. It wasn't the first time I had questions, but that night, I stopped waiting for answers to come on their own. My instincts had been whispering for weeks, tugging at me every time his smile didn't reach his eyes, or when his phone was always turned over on the table. He was present, but distant, like someone performing love rather than feeling it. So I followed that quiet voice inside me. Not out of rage, not even out of pain. Just a need to see clearly. I dressed like I was meeting a friend. Nothing too noticeable. I picked a booth just out of sight, but close enough to hear. The hostess offered me another seat, but I insisted on that one. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. He arrived 20 minutes later. Not late, not early. On time, as if this was routine. She was with him, smiling, touching his arm like they were used to each other. They sat directly in front of me, unaware. I didn't lean in. I didn't strain to hear. I just listened. They spoke like they were safe, like secrets didn't echo. He told her I was cold, that we hadn't been close in months, that he'd made peace with the idea of walking away. She giggled. He leaned closer. "We're done," he said. Just like that. It wasn't anger I felt. It was confirmation. I didn't confront him. I didn't text or call. I sat still, let them finish their meal, and walked out before they saw me. I didn't need to be seen. I just needed to know. After that night, I started collecting pieces. Quietly, carefully. Phone records. Bank charges. A restaurant receipt dated the same night he said he was working. I became my own investigator, not for revenge, but for clarity. I took photos. I backed up texts. I scanned everything twice and kept it all hidden. Not because I wanted to ruin him. I just didn't want to be lied to anymore. He got careless, like most people do when they believe they're not being watched. One evening, I came home early and heard him on the phone. His voice low, but not low enough. "I think I made a mistake marrying her." I didn't cry. I didn't freeze. I just hit record on my phone and stood quietly in the hallway, letting the truth unfold in his own words. That moment didn't break me. It settled me, because I finally stopped wondering if I was imagining things. I wasn't. The night I packed my life in silence, the house was still. No shouting, no slamming doors. Just the hum of the fridge and the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. He had fallen asleep on the couch, like he always did after spending too much time pretending nothing was wrong. His phone was face down. His shoes were still at the door. Nothing about the night looked unusual, but everything had already changed. I moved slowly, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to feel each step. There was no panic, no tears, just a strange, heavy calm. I walked into the bedroom, pulled out a small suitcase, the one I once used for weekend getaways with him, and placed it on the bed. I didn't take much. No dresses, no heels, no framed photos from fake happy days. I took the things that mattered. My ID, passport, bank documents, a small envelope of savings I had quietly built. I folded each item of clothing like I was packing for a new version of myself. Someone who didn't wait to be chosen. Someone who chose herself. In the bottom drawer of the dresser, I found the folder with our marriage certificate. I stared at it for a moment, then left it behind. That paper meant something once. Now it was just a record of a promise that didn't hold. The air in the house felt thick, like it knew I was leaving. Still, I moved without hesitation. Every cabinet I opened, every drawer I closed, felt like closing a chapter. I didn't bother with makeup or keepsake. I didn't take the ring box or the notes he once wrote me. I didn't need reminders of what used to be. Before I zipped the bag, I looked down at my hand. The wedding ring he had slipped on my finger years ago still sat there, cold, quiet, no longer mine. I slid it off and placed it gently on the kitchen counter, next to the spare key. I didn't leave a note. He wouldn't need one. He'd understand the silence. I stood in the doorway for a second, taking one last look at the house. The photos on the wall, the couch where he slept, the dishes still in the sink. It all looked normal. That was the strange part. You'd think a broken life would look more dramatic, but it never does. The suitcase wheels made no sound as I rolled them out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even close it all the way. Just enough. Outside, the night air was cool. I walked to the end of the street where a cab waited. I didn't look back. At the airport, I sat quietly by the window as the sky began to change color. The first hint of sunrise crept over the edge of the horizon. I opened my phone and searched flights. No return date. No familiar city. Just a one-way ticket to somewhere I could start over. He woke up to silence. No footsteps in the hallway. No soft sounds from the kitchen. No light humming like I used to do in the mornings. Just silence. Heavy and unfamiliar. He looked around, maybe thinking I had gone out for coffee or a walk. But then he noticed it. My side of the closet half empty. Drawers pulled open and neatly closed again. He checked the bathroom. No toothbrush. No perfume. No earrings left by the sink. He grabbed his phone and texted me. "Are you serious?" I saw the message, read it once, and said nothing. There was nothing left to explain. My silence was the answer. By then, I was already checked into a short-term apartment across the city. A small place with plain walls and thin curtains. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It didn't smell like his cologne. It didn't hold memories. It was just space, and that's all I needed. I had already changed my number that morning. A quiet visit to the service desk, one signature, and the old number was gone. I blocked him from everything. No more calls, no messages, no pop-ups dragging me back into his story. It felt strange at first, but not wrong. I made tea, sat on the floor of the empty living room, and listened to nothing. No tension, no fake apologies, no pretending, just stillness. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. I had already chosen one weeks before, just in case. I didn't cry during the conversation. I didn't feel unsure. The words came out steady. I want to file for divorce. Yes, I'm ready. Papers were prepared quickly. My lawyer handled everything. I didn't have to see him. I didn't have to explain why. He knew why. When the documents arrived at his door, I wasn't there to watch his reaction. I didn't need to be. That wasn't my life anymore. He thought I was bluffing. He thought I'd come back after a few days of silence, maybe angry, maybe crying, but still there. He didn't know I was already gone. Not just from the house. From the version of me who waited, who forgave, who swallowed her instincts again and again. That version was done. I wasn't angry. I wasn't out for revenge. I didn't want to punish him. I just wanted peace. And that's what I chose. Freedom. Not loud, not dramatic, but firm. He never expected me to leave without a fight. But I didn't leave to fight. I left to live. I found myself while he searched for me. At first, I didn't know what to do with all the quiet. The apartment felt too still, too clean, too unfamiliar. But I let it stay that way. I needed space that didn't remind me of him. No scent of his cologne, no ghost of old arguments clinging to the walls. Just white space, waiting to be filled. I started therapy on a Monday morning. The room smelled like coffee and new carpet. The therapist didn't ask too many questions at first. She just listened. I talked slowly, unsure at times, but the words came. Not all at once, but enough. I didn't tell the story like a victim. I told it like someone finally ready to understand why she stayed too long, and why leaving felt both terrifying and necessary. I went every week. I sat on the same couch, drank the same weak tea, and let someone finally help me sort through the mess I hadn't dared look at before. In between those sessions, I picked up a brush. It had been years since I painted. The canvas felt foreign under my fingers at first, but then it didn't. I stopped trying to make anything perfect. I just let colors blend, run, spill. I painted what I couldn't say. Some days it was just soft lines and quiet shades. Other days it was chaos in every stroke. But I didn't stop. I built a new routine. Woke up early. Went for runs, even if they were short at first. Ate breakfast. Drank water. Cooked for myself. Not fancy meals, just food that made me feel like I mattered. I cleaned because it felt good, not because I was afraid someone would complain. I stopped checking my old email. I stopped wondering if he'd try to call again. Months passed. I wasn't tracking time, but I noticed small things. I laughed more, real laughs that reached my eyes. I stood taller. I didn't flinch at love songs in coffee shops. I didn't cry when someone asked if I was married. One afternoon, almost a year later, I wandered into a bookstore on a rainy day. The kind of place that smelled like old paper and quiet dream. I didn't go there to meet anyone. I went because I liked the peace of walking through shelves that didn't ask anything. I was holding a book on art history when a man asked, "Are you taken?" It was a simple question. No pressure, no expectation. Just curiosity in his voice. I smiled. "I am," I said, closing the book gently. "By peace." He laughed softly. "Fair enough." We didn't exchange numbers. There was no rush. That moment didn't need to go anywhere. It was just a reminder that life had room again, for chance, for kindness, for lightness. I walked out with the book under my arm and a calm in my chest that hadn't been there in years. He was probably still searching. Maybe for me. Maybe for someone else. But I wasn't hiding anymore. I had simply moved on, into a life where I was no longer waiting to be found. Years had passed. Enough time for my name to no longer sit on his tongue, for my silence to become louder than anything I could have said. I had moved cities, changed routines, made a life he would never recognize. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. The sky was bright but not too hot. I was walking through a quiet grocery store, halfway down the fruit aisle, scanning for oranges. I remember thinking how peaceful the day felt. No rush, no noise, just stillness, the kind that comes when your life finally fits you. Then I heard my name. I turned slowly, already knowing who it was before I saw him. He stood a few feet away, holding nothing, looking like he'd just walked into a dream he hadn't expected to find. His eyes widened. For a moment, he didn't speak. Just stared, like he was trying to figure out how I could be real. "You look different," he finally said, voice low, unsure. I smiled. Not politely, not coldly, just calm. "I am." He stepped closer, still watching me like he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. I noticed the slight changes in his face. Lines deeper, hair thinner, but still that same expression he always wore when he didn't know what to say. "You live here?" he asked. I nodded. "For a while now." He glanced at my hand. His eyes paused at the wedding ring. That's when he really went quiet. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else. Maybe an apology. Maybe a question. But whatever it was, it never came out. He just stood there, looking at the version of me he never got to know. And then, just like that, my husband turned the corner. He pushed the cart, smiling when he saw me. "Found the tea you like," he said casually, placing it beside the apple. I felt his hand rest on the small of my back. Gentle, familiar, safe. He looked at the man standing a few feet away and gave him a polite nod, unaware of who he was. Just another stranger at the store. The man, the one I once waited for, cried for, left without a word, looked at us for a second longer. I could see the realization in his face. Not regret exactly, but something close. Like he knew he had reached a chapter he no longer belonged in. "I should go," he said. I didn't stop him. He walked away slowly, without looking back. My husband touched my hand, giving it a small squeeze. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah," I said. Completely. We moved on to the next aisle. Picked out rice. Talked about dinner. Laughed at something small. The past didn't follow me home. It didn't linger or knock on my door. It stayed where it belonged, in the aisle, between the oranges
Later that
and the
night,
silence.
after the grocery
And
store,
I left with the
after
one
the
who
quiet
knew how
drive
to hold
home,
my hand.
I
without
stood in the
ever
kitchen
letting go.
chopping vegetables while music played softly from the speaker. The house smelled like garlic and fresh herbs.
My husband moved around behind me, setting plates, humming a tune under his breath. It felt like any other evening, calm, easy, full of small joys that used to feel out of reach. Then my phone lit up. Unknown number. But I knew. Not by the digits, not by any sound. Just a pull in my chest, a sharp little whisper that didn't need proof. He was calling. I stared at the screen. It rang once. Twice. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I didn't feel curious or angry or even surprised. I felt done. He had seen me. Seen the life I built, the love I had. And now, here he was, trying to open a door he had closed himself. Maybe he wanted to explain. Maybe he thought seeing me again meant something could be fixed. But I wasn't broken anymore. He had laughed with someone else on my birthday. I didn't forget that. I didn't forget the silence, the lies, the night I packed quietly while he slept. I didn't forget finding myself when he thought I'd fall apart. The phone kept ringing. I didn't move to answer. I let it echo once more, then picked up the phone and pressed the button that ended the call. No message came after. No second try. I placed the phone face down on the counter and turned back to the cutting board. The music was still playing. The sauce was starting to simmer. My husband walked up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You okay?" he asked, his chin resting on my shoulder. I nodded. "Yeah, just some noise." He smiled and kissed the top of my head. Then, without a word, he took my hand and spun me gently into a dance. There, in the soft yellow light of our kitchen, we moved together between the pots and the plates, my bare feet sliding across the cool tile, his laugh warm in my ear. The phone didn't ring again, and even if it did, I wouldn't have answered. To every woman who's ever been forgotten, I see you. If you've ever waited in a room full of people but felt completely alone, if you've ever looked at someone and realized they stopped seeing you long ago, if you've ever smiled through pain just to keep things normal, this is for you. I know what it feels like to be invisible, to be spoken over, dismissed, replaced without warning. I know the weight of pretending everything is fine when you haven't felt fine in months. You question yourself. You doubt what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. You convince yourself to stay silent because you think maybe, just maybe, it'll get better if you do. But here's what I've learned. That small voice inside you, the one that keeps tugging at your heart, whispering that something is wrong. It's not wrong. It's not overreacting. It's trying to protect you. Listen to it. You don't have to wait for someone to finally value you. You don't have to prove your worth to someone who's already made up their mind. You are not here to be picked when it's convenient. Choose yourself. Choose peace over begging. Choose clarity over confusion. Choose quiet strength over loud chaos. When I walked away, I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things or demand an explanation that I knew would never be honest. I simply left with my dignity, my name, and my truth. That was enough. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you stop chasing someone who never intended to stay. And there's a kind of healing that begins when you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You can rebuild from quiet ground. You can learn to laugh again, even if it starts off feeling strange. You can find peace in a new morning, in clean sheets, in coffee that only has to taste good to you. This is what I want you to know. You don't need closure from someone else. You can give it to yourself. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not lost. You are realigning. And you are never, ever too late to begin again. So to the woman who's watching this, reading this, feeling this deep in her chest, you don't need permission to leave. You don't need anyone to believe your reason. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to scream to walk away. Sometimes silence is the loudest move you'll ever make. He gave his love to another. I gave myself a new life. I'm not angry anymore. That part of me has gone quiet. What remains is peace, the kind that doesn't need answers or apologies to feel complete. Tonight, I walked back into the restaurant where everything once fell apart. But I wasn't alone this time. My husband held the door open for me. We laughed as we sat by the window. The same table, the same dish. But nothing about it felt the same. No waiting, no aching, no pretending. Just warmth, laughter, and a man who looks at me like I'm the only one in the room. I glanced around, remembering the night I saw it all so clearly. The lies, the truth, the end. That night used to haunt me. Now it's just a memory. A quiet one. I never got an apology. He never said sorry for bringing her there, for letting me find out that way, for all the things he took without asking. And honestly, he never had to. Because I stopped needing anything from him the moment I chose myself. Healing didn't come quickly. It came in quiet mornings, small wins, and learning how to feel whole without being half of something. That night didn't define me. It redirected me. And sitting here now, across from someone who loves me with his full heart, I know one thing for sure. I didn't lose anything that night. I let go. And that was enough. I never got an apology. I never needed one. I gave myself closure. That was enough. Do you think I made the right choice by walking away without asking for an apology, or should I have confronted him before leaving? Tell me what you think in the comments. I'd really love to know. And if my journey resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell.